Like, it's 2025. Why are you still using paper?
Welcome to Agents of Scale, folks. This is the show where I sit down with leaders transforming how real companies are using AI at scale. I'm Wade. I'm one of the co-founders, CEO here at Zapier. Each episode, we're going to unpack how forward-thinking execs are building the future, one workflow at a time. And today, we got a good one, joined by Forrest, who is the co-founder and CTO of Jobber. Jobber is the platform powering over 300,000 home service businesses across North America. Forrest is one of the quiet forces behind one of the most impressive digital transformations in the trades. We've gone from pen to paper chaos to AI copilots, 24/7 virtual receptionists across industries you don't usually think as tech forward. So folks like plumbers, landscapers, electricians, contractors, all running their businesses efficiently with AI now these days. So Forrest, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk Jobber. So you started Jobber quite a while ago now.
15 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, coming up on 15 years, or yeah, pretty much exactly at 15 years now. The trades never been like the cool space. What made you all place a bet on an overlooked market that most folks in tech just ignore or simply just don't know much about?
So again, we weren't looking to make some cool company. We weren't looking for flashy headlines. We're just really driven to solve people's problems. Both Sam and I, we were freelance developers before this. So we went around talking to small business, trying to understand their pain points and seeing what we could solve with technology. And he one day had been talking to and doing some work with a local company. A friend of mine who worked at a painting company came in and independently approached me. So we had a couple of businesses, same sets of problems. And we were just talking about this one day. It's like, look, these are real businesses with real problems. They all have the same problem. Maybe we can help solve that.
It kind of reminds me of a thing we're starting to see more of right now with these AI founders is a lot of them are taking jobs on the front lines in these boring areas just to learn like the workflows and the use cases and all that sort of stuff. Then they go start a company to actually like build agents and automate that stuff.
Absolutely. That's such a key piece of being a founder is like, you first have to be really passionate about the problem you're solving and you have to get really close to the customers. If you're not doing those things, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah. Do you remember like maybe the first customer where you felt like, oh wow, we're actually solving a pretty important problem for them? Like, I think we might have something special here.
At the end of the day, our very first customer, Graham from Painters Enterprise, would be, that very first wow moment. We'd spent more than 6 months trying to find that first customer, going around every day, talking to small businesses. We were actually cold calling out of the phone book by the end. I had a whole script put together. Hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't even have anything to sell. We're just two guys working on a product that may someday help businesses like yours. If I could grab 10 minutes of your time, show you what we're working on, I'd really appreciate any feedback you could provide. And you get lots of hangups and everything, but we'd go out, we'd show people, walk them through the demo, and they'd always end by telling us that like they're not going to use this product. But then we'd ask why, and they'd give us great feedback. We'd go back to our coffee shop and iterate from there. And after 6 months of this, of no, when we sat down with Graham and showed him, walked him through the demo and said, would you use this for your business? He said, yes. And that was like that, holy moly, we got our first user.
What do you think was different about Graham compared to all the no's prior?
Every no we received up to that point came with a lot of learnings. And we took those learnings and put them back into the product. We had sort of crossed a mark where 100% of people would say no to the product to a point where 99% of people would say no to the product. But beyond that, Graham, super generous with his time, very entrepreneurial natured. And I think he sort of took a look at us and decided he was going to give us a shot, see what we could do. He was very generous.
It's interesting how like all these early stories have similarities. I remember our original pitch was similar. We're not trying to sell you something. I would email them and say, hey, I'm working on a project. And you're asking on the forums like about an integration with this, that, and the other. We've got something that does that. Like, would you be interested in taking a look at our project? And eventually some of those folks were like, oh yeah, like if that does what you're saying, like I think I would be into that. So yeah, very, very sort of subtle. Sort of the way I understand it is the initial problem is you're helping these service businesses with managing, scheduling, quoting, at all the sort of like back office complexity, right? Do you remember what some of those early stubborn problems that you had to solve were to really get folks like Graham to say, this actually is worth sort of migrating from my old system to a new one?
Yeah. And a reminder, 15 years ago, a system meant like pen and paper, carbon copy invoices, filling a binder, getting crinkled up, left under the seat of their truck, lost forever, finding out 3 months later that you forgot to invoice a client. That's the system we were trying to replace. But it's really interesting that there's almost nothing more flexible in the world than a pen and paper. And the real world is messy. The real world gets complicated, and real businesses are complicated. So building Jobber from a simple system, which people could look at and go, it's just, I don't think my business could really fit into that. Being able to build for all the edge cases and real world complexities without becoming too complicated and overwhelming, that was the real challenge. I think some of it was technology. A lot of it was user experience and trying to find that right balance.
I'd love to hear more about, maybe like the mindset around design and building software, or even selling to blue collar users. Like, that's not an industry most tech thinks about. What do you think you had to do different to land an audience that isn't known for being maybe tech forward? And to your point, they're all on pen and paper at this point in time.
It's a bit of a misconception that they're not tech forward. It's that they don't have time to waste. So they're not going to waste their time on some shiny new piece of technology. You and I both know that often the cutting edge technologies, you're going to spend 5 hours automating a 5-minute task. You're going to spend more time learning the tool than it's actually going to save you. They don't have, any appetite for that kind of technology. But if you can save them real time, real money, help them look more professional with their customers, they're all over that. They take it really seriously. And that's one of the things I really like about them. That's what I love about all SMB in general is it's not smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
You just have to provide real value. And if you're doing something that makes their lives better, they're in. And the moment you stop doing that, they will leave right away. It's a very honest business.
Yeah. It reminds me of, we were talking with a CEO at Newfront, Spike, and he was talking about this too, where they've got all these brokers in the business, which again, sort of not known for being tech forward, but he's saying similar thing. Hey, that's a little bit of a misconception. It's just, we got work to do. And so their workflows was, how do we build a bunch of technology behind email? Because people use email like crazy. And, if you can sort of tap into the stuff that people are already using, that's actually practically useful versus, making somebody use some sort of whiz bang, app that, like new thing to learn, etc. So yeah, I think you're onto something there, which is like, hey, make something actually useful versus just tech for tech's sake.
Yeah. I think one thing I'd add in, because I didn't fully answer your question about like how you have to work differently with this crowd, is you have to start by spending a lot of time with them. So that you can authentically speak to the value you're creating, but also speak their language. Some industries use the word quote, some use estimates, right? Like, do you need to quote? You need to actually visit, do an assessment, right? You need to be able to have good examples, good demos, good material at every step of the journey to give it real authenticity. Because that's part of what helps convey the trust and build the trust that we're not just saying, nothing destroys trust faster than us saying we understand your business, but you see a bunch of words that that's not your language. That doesn't match your world. So we do have to have a bit of a, for lack of a better word, translation layer at every stage of our journey to make sure that we're conveying the value in a language that really connects what we're doing to their world. They're not going to come to us. We have to go to them.
How do you instill that as a core philosophy internally? You know, you and Sam, you're spending time with these customers in the early days, but now you've got all these employees. These employees probably don't necessarily come from the background of the customers you're serving, and so it's probably doubly important that they are spending time walking in the shoes of your customers, understanding their language, etc. How do you systematize that?
It's probably one of the most important things we can be doing. We take voice of customer and customer interactions really, really seriously. At every stage, we find opportunities to inject it. A few examples. We have in Slack a voice of customer channel. Every review, every feedback, every cancellation reason, every NPS, everything feeds into a Slack channel that everybody in the company has access to. We kick off every town hall with our CEO interviewing a customer. We shut down the whole company once a quarter for a couple hours and do a customer panel where we bring customers in and interview them. We've set up so like everybody in product does ride-alongs where you're actually going out and visiting customers out in the field. When our senior leadership team gets together, we're a semi-remote company, a hybrid company, but once a quarter we bring all of SLT together for a few days. That's really valuable time, and yet we'll take the first half day, break into groups, and go out and visit clients in person, learn about them, their goals, their ambitions, why they started, what makes a good day, what makes a bad day. Because then we're bringing that firsthand set of insights together when we plan out our strategy for the rest of the quarter. Every board meeting, we start off with a video interview of one of our customers to make sure even at the top level, even at like our VCs, are getting in the headspace of the customers and who they are before we start making decisions. So from the very front lines all the way to the very top board meetings, we try and instill our customer's voice.
Love it. Let's shift to AI a little bit. 15 years ago, I'm guessing this isn't on your radar. Do you remember your first sort of like aha moment where you thought, we need to be paying more attention to this?
Interestingly enough, it was on my radar 15 years ago. Before starting Jobber, when I was in university, I was passionate about machine learning. I thought I was going to be an academic. I had been accepted into a master's program, had my professor all lined up. And in my last semester of my last year of my undergrad, just before I graduated and went into the stream of academia, I came down with a bad cough, got checked out. Turns out I had a big tumor in my left lung, had to go in for immediate surgery. It messed up my plans, diverted my course, but I've always had a passion for machine learning since. Back in 2017, it was already the title of my board decks. Jobber will become your most trusted employee. And I'll be honest, I spent millions of dollars trying to agentify Jobber before the technology was ready. I had hired PhDs out of the university. We were going hard. Unfortunately, we just could not make that connect, and I had to put it on a shelf for years. So you can imagine how excited I was when this most recent generation of technological innovations came about, and we were able to take that vision and make it a reality.
So what was the first moment for you where you actually did get some of these ideas to click and work inside the product?
I'll ignore all the things that we tried that didn't work back in the day. There was a lot of interesting promise, but we just couldn't quite make it reliable and consistent enough. Like it's always, AI is one of those things. It's easy to have moments of greatness. The hard part is making it consistently great enough that you can turn into a production product. With this most recent round, we were a lot more cautious. Going back into sort of 2021, 2022, we started playing with if AI could start to use the data in your account and generate really good insights and advice. One of our PMs, Bob Evans, he actually built out a whole system where he was just taking context out of accounts who had opted in. He had 50 accounts that put their hands up to try this thing. He'd take out, copy, paste into ChatGPT with prompts, hit enter. This was back in like the 3.0 days. Get the results, copy and paste it back into a spreadsheet, then take all those spreadsheets and email them out one by one. So they got a weekly digest of advice from AI. And when that was getting good results, it's like, okay, it's time to turn this into a in-product experience. And then we started to go from there. But once you have this interface in the product where you can engage and try and seek business advice, it started a whole journey. You can't make the most trusted employee if it doesn't even know how Jobber works, right? One of the first things people do is ask questions about how Jobber works. All right, time to hook it up to a RAG, make sure it has our knowledge base. Now it's offering some basic support, but it wasn't talking the right language. It was very technical, manual. It wasn't able to take the features of Jobber and put them in a broader context. Luckily, we had our wonderful blog, Jobber Academy, 2,700 professionally written professionally interviewed articles, talk about all the different ways our customers are solving their problems. So that started to make a lot more voice and tone and business expertise, but it was very disconnected from who our customers were. That led us to teaching it how to query their data firsthand. This was before tool calls existed, but we got it able to put together SQL queries, fetch the data out of the accounts, and now it's starting to make more sense, like your data, this business advice, but it still was missing the broader context because a plumber in New York is still very different than a plumber in Edmonton, as an example. A 2-person plumber versus a 20-person plumber, very different advice is going to make sense. So we started giving it benchmarks and best practices, right? And that got us to a point where now we can have a prompt in the product that pops up and goes, hey, did you know your quote win rate is 20% below other 4 to 10 employee landscapers in Texas? Let's talk about the best practices that they're doing to get that higher number. That gets clicked every time. When they click that, then we can have a conversation with you about what are you doing and what aren't you doing and what should maybe change in your business. And once you're like, okay, let's start doing that, then we can guide you through the product and help you turn on those features and configure them correctly. And then we can circle back and show you how much that's driving up. And we're doing all that now through this more agentive approach.
So one of the interesting things you've talked about is, Jobber is like your most trusted employee, and AI, it's non-deterministic.
Yes.
And so it makes mistakes. Like, how do you sort of like make that concept come to life in a way that these, your customers, build trust with the system versus degrade trust with the system?
It's a great question, and one we spend a lot of time on. It goes back to start by working really closely with the customers and understanding where we have permission to play. You start by giving advice. As the advice gets accepted more and more, you can start to get permission to draft, prepare, notify. As you continue to gain permission, you can start to automate. You can also work with them to understand where are the guardrails and escalation paths that are needed. A perfect example would be our AI receptionist. So this is a fantastic tool. We've launched it recently. It's now taken over 200,000 phone calls on behalf of our customers. And this feature is exactly what it sounds like. It's a great way it picks up the phone, it has a conversation, it has access to your price book, it can answer questions for your customers, it has access to your calendar, it will book callers directly into your calendar for you so that you show up the next morning to a bunch of new work already scheduled. It took a long time to develop the right guardrails and give our customers the sort of permission ladder where they can start with it's just sort of more of an answering service. It's taking a message. Then now it can sort of go through a form, gather up all the lead and all the key information, but I'm still going to call them back and book them in to booking directly into the calendar. People actually go through that transition really quick though, because again, going back to where we started, people are very willing to adopt technology if it's impacting their bottom line, if it's actually helping them save time, save money. 76% of phone calls come in after 5 p.m. 33% of phone calls go unanswered. And that's why of all the jobs that our AI receptionist is booking in, more than 30% of them get created after hours. That 30%, those would just have been missed otherwise. That would have been lost business. So we're saving them so much time, we're booking them so much money that if it occasionally makes a mistake, they'll give that feedback and it will get smarter and it will get better. But they're very quick to actually progress up that trust curve.
Want to zoom out again? You've got one of the things you hear a lot about kind of in media is this generational shift in the trades. You've got all these folks that spent their whole careers as a plumber, and now there's sort of a new era of folks coming into the workforce. As this turnover happens, does that change the way, like the types of features, the types of interfaces that Jobber is delivering? Like how does that shift what you do with AI, what you don't do with AI, when you have like a different type of person or a different age, I guess, of person that's using the technology?
I think the next generation has been pretty excited about adopting the technology. Basically, homeowners, their expectations have been changing very fast. The convenience economy, starts with Amazon, transitions into Uber, you get the Door Dashes, this idea of instant gratification, lots of notifications, lots of awareness at every step. I want to know exactly where my package is getting tracked through my shop app. And that is raising the bar on the expectations that home services offer to homeowners. And the next generation gets that. So they're very quick to adopt technology that can let them represent themselves the way that the brands they like represent themselves.
Let's talk about AI usage internally at Jobber. You're obviously like paying a lot of attention to AI yourself since your school days. And so you certainly have, folks inside your product and engineering org that are, you've hired in, that are obsessed with ML, obsessed with AI in the same way you are. But I'm going to guess like the larger company is probably paying less attention to it compared to maybe these folks that are, specifically, hey, here for this. When did you first start thinking like, hey, maybe we should be rethinking how we use AI internally across the organization?
I think we've been pretty excited about it, again, from day one. The moment it started producing value for the customers, we knew that there was a way for it to start producing similar value for us. That's why, we started using, the moment we had internal docs loaded into the AI to help our external customers, we can start using that to help newly onboarding customer success representatives get up to speed faster, as an example. There are lots of ways we're already using it internally. 76% of our inbound chats are now supported directly with AI with a fantastic CSAT rate. Evenings, weekends, we're starting to offer a percentage of support with the same technology we're using for our AI receptionists, and are wrapping that up all the time. There's many ways that we're exploring how to reimagine how our business runs, and that's a really exciting thing.
Are there specific cultural rituals or things, tools that you've had to procure or approaches you've had to take that enable the organization, empower the organization to do more of this on your own? Or, is it mostly an effort run by, kind of like a centralized team led by you? Like, how are you sort of going about getting it in the hands of folks?
I really try and encourage everyone to look for ways to solve this. And if they see an opportunity but can't quite get there, then they should ask for help, and we'll partner with them to address it. But I want to push it through to everywhere. I think a great example would be a recent partnership we did with one of the sales managers, where using Zapier, we connected it to Gong, grab the transcript automatically, run it through a whole scoring system, and pump it into a spreadsheet. So they have every call from every success rep or every sales rep with a bunch of different key scores, and then that can all get aggregated through a pivot so they can see how the different salespeople are performing with like rich call scoring, and a lot of coaching and advice comes out of it because we can identify the AI is spitting out, hey, this person, they're a little weak on their intros, they're not always consistently delivering the message. This other person, they often forget to finish their call with like the next steps and the action items that they learned from the call. And that's all powered by AI. And that came from one of our sales managers. one of our customer support managers recently built a custom GPT for role playing and training that now everybody on that team uses to get up to speed faster. Those are things that are coming from the functional managers. And we have a dedicated Slack channel called Social AI where anybody at any time can go in, hey, I'm trying to do this. I'm a little stuck. Any advice? And they'll get lots of support from each other.
That's super cool. I love that Gong coaching workflow. We see that similar use case across the customer base quite a bit. Are there ways in which you sort of fan the flames of this like organic interest? It sounds like you've got the social AI channel. You've got, a pretty responsive team that's like there for folks to help. Are there other efforts that really sort of have accelerated adoption internally?
I think it's just beating the drum at every opportunity. Yeah. Talk about town halls, talk about stand-ups, talk about in Slack. And at that recent Choose Your Impact event, many of our speakers were brought in specifically to talk to the company about AI, the future of AI, why this is exciting, why this is important, why this isn't something to be scared of, it's something to be embracing. But it's also something that you can't just passively sit back and let happen to you. You have to roll up your sleeves and control your own destiny when it comes to reinventing your role and reinventing the future with AI.
Yeah, I mean, that drumbeat thing like resonates so much. Like that, we see people running hackathons, do show and tell at the all hands, like Slack channels. Like the drumbeat really does seem to, if you do it consistently, it does seem to over the course of time meaningfully inflect folks' usage of the technology, and allows them to like. I find it. I find it makes folks a little less fearful too. Like there's so much fear around AI right now. And the more people just use it, the more they realize, wow, it's really impressive. And also like it is yet another tool in the tool belt. And so it just takes some of the fear away.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have this like vision around business owners like supervising the business instead of AI like actually running every last inch. What do you think the sort of future of the trades looks like with, AI as a core collaborator as part of the work?
No one is going to benefit more from AI than small service businesses. For them, time is literally money. They are out and about in the field, often like between different devices on different platforms. They're not sitting in front of a computer keeping everything organized. And yet even things like customer support, customer service, timely replies, like are really, really important. These are all things that AI can really help with. I think in the future, one person will be able to, we can remove all the toil. That's a tax on small businesses, right? All the things that they're doing that aren't paying the bills. Most of that paperwork, that's just a drain. That takes away from the time that they should be spending growing their business and earning money. So if we can be helping with the transactional communications, with the scheduling, keeping track of the payroll, keeping track of the invoices, doing the follow-ups, running their campaigns for them, helping keep track of their websites and updating their SEO and all the things it takes to run a business that are a distraction from the things that really matter. That allows business owners to focus on both doing the work, but having the meaningful interactions with the clients, having the meaningful interactions with their employees. Those are the things that really matter that only they can do. And I'd love for the future, the businesses to be focused 100% on that.
I love that. In fact, one of the very early usage of generative AI I saw that really made me go, whoa, was I was talking to a customer who, her wife was a gardener, and she was really bad at sending out invoices to her customers. Love gardening. And I think this is like a story that's pretty true for a lot of folks in trades. Like they like the work, but the back office stuff is like, it's a burden, right? And so he built this pretty simple use case. He called it voice to invoice. And it was a little form on her phone that she could press record, and she would just talk into it while she was out in the field and say like, hey, I talked to my customer, you ordered to buy this many of this flowers, this many of this flowers, the budget is this, da 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 da. And, it would send it through a transcription app. It would spit the details into a spreadsheet, and then it would spit out an invoice on the other side, and Zapier sort of hooking all this stuff up. And it was just like one of those things where I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like, why wouldn't anyone use something like this that's running a small business? Like, this is such an obvious thing to exist in the world, and this guy just built it in 5 minutes. Like, this technology is going to change the way the economy works.
I absolutely love that story. I think it touches on two key things. One, we actually I'm a big believer in that just overall user experience. At March, we shared Hey Jobber, which is the voice interactions and the agentive experience where it can actually start working with your screen. That's making a lot of progress. So you can just walk around a house talking at your phone, like, hey, it looks like this ceiling needs this work here, and then we're 3 walls, we're going to have a door frame, and the quote's just building as you're talking. I think those types of experiences, that's the future for a lot of small service businesses. But you touched on something else there with that example, which is where we get a lot of inspiration for the opportunities is from our customers, right? Over a year ago, we actually did a survey when we were trying to understand, before we launched our first version of our Copilot, just to understand the sentiment, right? In my head, I was worried that people were really fearful of AI. 72% of the market back then had already been playing with it, already trying to figure out how it could help give them an edge in business, right? These are the plumbers, landscapers, window washers. 72% of them were already trying to figure out how AI could help small businesses. So when we're talking with clients, we always ask them, how are you trying to use AI? What would you love AI to help solve for you? And they all have a lot of answers. They've already thought deeply on this problem. Unsurprisingly, a lot of things they ask for don't require AI. That's just straight up product. But there are a lot of really brilliant ideas that they're bringing forward. And in situations where it applies to a large enough base of customers, it makes it right to the top of the product list. And now we're building it. And I'll give us a little plug that coming up September 25th, we have our Jobber Now event, which is our twice a year event where we do a big set of releases. And we have a dozen features. Most of them are AI powered, and all of them are inspired directly from conversations with clients.
It's funny you say a lot of the requests don't require AI. We found that too, where it sort of feels like the advent of AI has caused customers to be more ambitious in their requests, more visionary in their requests out of it. It's like, I would want it to do this, that, or the other. They may not know, like, oh, does this need AI? Does this not need AI? And they don't have a good sense of what's easy or what's hard. But it's been fun to watch them be more demanding, I think, of the software that they use. And I think at the other side, we are going to build a lot better software when customers are dreaming bigger about the possibilities of what could be. On that note, what do you think small business, the trades, what are they not doing enough of with software that they should be doing? What are the things where you're just like, gosh, these are no-brainer areas, and I'm surprised I don't see more folks running their companies this way?
Actually, payment collection is probably a big one. And I say this knowing that our customers only have so much control over how their customers pay them. But using a proper credit card payment system like Jobber, has payment collection built right into it. But any form of credit card collection is not, it's still an uphill battle. Checks make up the majority of financial transactions. And just this idea of this piece of paper that, you have to show up in person, it's written out by hand, it's getting lost, you have to actually go to bank. And now it's getting a little easier, but still go use a proper digital system to get paid. It's 2025. Why are you still using paper? Cash is still actually a pretty big thing. And the most successful businesses we've seen, again, working with over 300,000 pros, for 15 years, we've had a chance to see a lot of businesses. The most successful ones are actually saying, I'm sorry, I don't take cash or check, credit card only, because they're focused on the things that really matter. Most of the time you can push your client to pay on that format, and it lets you, everything's digitized, everything's tracked automatically. So if you need to start doing reporting, understanding your job costing, It improves your cash flow because you can get instant access to funds. I'm always surprised that is such an uphill battle in this market.
It's funny you mentioned that. So, my wife and I, we lived in the Bay Area for 10 years. Of course, everybody's using like the most modern technology to go about this. And so, in my mind, checks, that's a thing of the past. To your point, it's 2025. What are we doing here? Well, we moved back to Central Missouri, at the start of the pandemic. And, we're starting to work with, some local small businesses on it and a handful of things. Everyone takes check. And we're like, what is going on here? Like, we're going to have to order checks. How do you order checks? I don't know how to order checks. So, I think there's this right here, I think is something that, one, when you're in the middle, when you're outside the echo chamber, you actually notice things like this. You notice that like, oh, there is a different in going about this. And it also speaks to that other thing you were talking about, which is go spend time with your customers. You're spending time with them, you're going to understand like, oh, maybe there are some things that I thought was a solved problem that turns out there's still a huge opportunity here. Like most things are still pen and paper. Most things are still checks. We can still figure this out. There's still work to be done here.
Yeah.
I love it, Forrest. Well, that is an incredible story to end on. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Agents of Scale. I think the story here like pretty perfectly captures what it looks like to scale impact with AI with like a deep sense of focus on humans, deep sense of focus on customers, and a deep sense of focus on like pragmatism. Like this isn't just like AI for AI's sake. This is like, we're here to solve a problem. So thanks for joining on the show. And go ahead.
Just one last thing. Only because it's driving me nuts and I got to get it out before we end. I stumbled over the name of the podcast earlier. I accidentally called it Masters of Scale. I'm Masters of Home Service. That's the name of the podcast. I don't want to be claiming somebody else's podcast.
There you go. You hear it, folks. If you wanna check out the job podcast, it's Masters of Service there. It's got all sorts of great tips and tricks on how to run your service business. At least that's what I'm going to assume it's about.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Forrest. Well, thanks for joining me. A credible conversation. And, we'll catch you all next time on Agents of Scale.